Ladies and gentlemen, Weiss and West is my name, and I'm the proprietor of Serengeti Gallery. We've been here in this location for 31 years, beginning in July. In the county, had a presence for 38 years, featuring the art and the culture of the African diaspora. And we're very happy to see you here this afternoon. This is the second go-round for us. Um, and we've had, I think, our first time that we had Kevin and Deborah Willis here, the house was packed. We're not packed now, but we have a lot of good people here who we are going to appreciate this afternoon. So thank you very much. I'm now going to ask my lovely wife, Mary, to come out and introduce Kevin to us and do a little reading from his book of Kamala Harris, because he is a phenomenal journalist. So we just like to open up with a little section of Kamala's book that he has read, and then after that, he and I will have a dialogue, and then open it up to a few questions. We won't keep you here all afternoon. My wife, Mary West.
I'm going to start off by just reading an updated biography, right? Yeah, of Kevin, just in case you don't know all the great stuff he's done. All right. So, Kevin Merida is an independent journalist, storyteller, and media executive. He is a contributing essayist to the Washington Post opinion section and a strategic advisor to the Academy Award winning Breakwater Studios. He's the former executive editor of the Los Angeles Times. Under his leadership, the newspaper won 4 Pulitzer Prizes and its first Oscar for the documentary short film, The Last Repair Shop, directed by Ben Proudfoot and Chris Bowers. The Times also implemented a range of new initiatives, including the Fast Break Desk for breaking news and trending topics, the 404 Social Content Creation Team, the Latino Identity and Culture Vertical Velos, and a reimagined climate, science, and health coverage department. Before joining the Times in 2021, Merida was a senior vice president at ESPN and editor in chief of The Undefeated, now Andscape, a multimedia platform that explores the intersections of race, sports, and culture. During his tenure at ESPN, he also oversaw the investigative news enterprise unit, the shows Outside the Lines and E60, and chaired ESPN's editorial board. While at ESPN, the journalism he helmed received 3 sports Emmys. Before joining ESPN, Meredith spent 22 years at the Washington Post in a variety of reporting, writing, and leadership roles. He covered Congress and the national politics, was a long form feature writer for the Style section, a columnist for the Sunday Magazine, associate editor, national editor, and managing editor for news and features coverage. As managing editor, he helped lead the Post to 4 Pulitzer Prizes, and the paper embarked on a digital transformation that made it one of the fastest growing news organizations in the country. Earlier in his career, Merida was a general assignments reporter at the Milwaukee Journal. He also spent 10 years at the Dallas Morning News in various roles, including covering local and national politics, the White House, and overseeing foreign and national news coverage. Merida is co author of the critically acclaimed Supreme Discomfort: The Divided Soul of Clarence Thomas, the best selling Obama, the historical campaign in photographs, and Kamala, her historic, joyful, and auspicious sprint to the White House. He is also the editor and contributor to the anthology Being a Black Man at the Corner of Progress and Peril, based on an award winning Washington Post series. He has been honored with numerous awards for journalism, including from the University of Missouri, University of Kansas, and the University of Michigan. In 2020, he was given the Chuck Stone Lifetime Achievement Award by the National Association of Black Journalists and was named NABJ's Journalist of the Year in 2000. In 1990, Merida was a Pulitzer Prize finalist as a part of a Dallas morning news team reporting on the world's hidden wars. Merida is a member of the Pulitzer Prize Board, the LA Local News Initiative Board, the Video Consortium Board, the KFF Board of Trustees, the Boston University Board of Trustees, the Fallen Journalists Memorial Foundation Board Advisors, and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. He is married to author and essayist Donna Britt, and they have three sons, Justin, Daryl, and Syke, and a, is that right? Sky. Oh, Sky, sorry. And a grandson, Sid. Got it. All right. Introducing Kevin Merida.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to read just the first little bit out of his book that we're talking about today, Kamala, her historic, joyful, and auspicious sprint to the White House. Introduction. Over a lightning swift 107 days, Kamala Harris completely rewrote the American political playbook. She took her perpetually underestimated self and sprinted across the 2024 presidential campaign landscape, giving voice to aspiration and ambition, bringing confidence to little girls, championing small businesses as a part of her economic vision, and launching a historically Black colleges and university homecoming tour. She even ordered a slice of chocolate caramel cake, caramel's her favorite, at Dottie Markets in Savannah along the way. Harris was the most sudden, improbable presidential nominee of a major political party in modern history, and she seized the opportunity as if the moment were made for her. Harris had been a loyal vice president, living in the shadow of President Joe Biden, sometimes doubted and dissed, unable to pop out and show her value. Of course, presidents rarely stand out. They're background performers. Only once in 188 years had a sitting vice president, George H.W. Bush in 1988, been elected president. But one alarming debate performance by the then 81-year-old Biden triggered a stunning sequence of actions that forced him to drop out of the race and Harris to be catapulted to the main stage. She became one of the Democrats, she became the one Democrats were waiting for, the one to shift the story. All of those potential voters who were feeling depressed about 2024, voters of different identities and allegiances dreading the choice of Biden versus a second Donald Trump presidency, were quickly in an unimaginably better mood. Kamala, her historic, joyful, and auspicious sprint to the White House, is in some ways about that mood, the locomotion of new possibilities imagined. What Kamala Harris did in a few short months was popularized joy, a simple, sweet, infectious noun that became a kind of campaign anthem to rally about around. The antidote for fear and hopelessness, and just maybe the inception of a saner kind of politics, the politics of decency. That's the beginning part of the introduction to this book. We hope you'll enjoy it and keep it in your house and let other people understand how important it is to have a decent government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you.
Sure,
Thank
yeah.
you. Well, Kevin, here we go.
Yeah, that was a lot, man. First of all,
Yes.
well, thanks for yeah. Intimacy is great, for me. I mean, it's like being in my living room here and seeing some friends. Everybody here I know, which is great and meaningful to me. So it's good to be here. I always love being at this gallery. It's just not only because of friendship with Wyson for a long time and growing up right down the street, and this is like my neighborhood, my community. So it always special to come back here, and of course I've gotten many pieces over the years. You framed many things for me, but it's just like it just makes me feel good to be here. That was a great introduction. The first thing I thought, I'm on too many boards. It's the first thing, like I'm on too many boards. But maybe we can correct that. But no, it's great to just be here with you anytime.
Well, it's always a great pleasure of mine to ask you to come back because of your tremendous record. You have so much to offer to the American public. You've been doing this for pretty close to probably 35, 40 years.
Longer. We don't have to sugarcoat it. Let's shoot. It's my 46 year in journalism. Yeah.
46 years. That's quite a career. Yeah. And I've had a couple of your buddies from Cross and high school. They're going to take you back for a minute.
Yeah. I hope to see a couple of people. Yeah. Always love seeing people in the neighborhood drop by.
Yes. Well, we love you to see you when you come into the area, and thank you again for gracing us with your presence, because I know you could have been many other places, but you're here with us in Capitol Heights, Maryland. Welcome home. Welcome home.
Thank you.
Yes. So here we are in March, Women's History Month, and we wanted to do something with you and Deborah, but Deborah's schedule, of course, wouldn't allow it. But we want to really reflect on her magical journey was really what it was. And I'm sure many who are sitting here today can feel the emotions that you went through when she did not win the election, when many thought, well, she had it nailed down. This glorious joy that she brought to the community, to the United States. What were you thinking when you were putting this book together and it didn't quite wind up the way Obama's did in 2008?
Well, yeah. Thanks for that. I mean, first of all, it's just a different kind of experience. I mean, in some ways the same experience, because we got asked to do the Obama book. That was the editor came to us at the time. I was still writing, and then that was in 2008. It was kind of like a quick turnaround, and it came out right after the elections, the first photo book that actually was there. So they're given that you elected the first African American president, and I remember having an event here. It was packed. People were feeling all of this. Wow, can't believe this historic barrier has been shattered. No African American president, and there was just this incredible outpouring of you. So you're just also, just as a journalist, you're watching what that meant, that presidency meant to people, and so you're absorbing that. And we, of course, doesn't hurt when someone wins and you have a book right out. It does well for sales, and that's great for our work. I mean, is this book, same editor, Dawn Davis, who was at a different house, and we did this for Simon & Schuster. Obama's book was done for HarperCollins, but the same editor, same idea. When she came to me and Deb and said, "You guys want to run it back?" Deadline was even tighter. We about 6 weeks of production, including curating photos, including writing what I wrote. That was Mary read from the opening essay, but then there were introductions to sections. There were captions. There was a lot that went into that, and we had 6 weeks, and I was on the West Coast. Then Deb was on the East Coast, and Simon & Schuster, they're on the East Coast. So we were trying to sync up the timelines, and it was just incredible. So in some ways, the metaphor of a sprint to the White House for what Kamala Harris as vice president had to go. She had to kind of, in some ways, you're still the sitting vice president. You have to shed some of that clothing. You're going to now take the baton from the guy who is ostensibly your boss, the main guy who said, I'm out, and out under pressure. And now have to mount a campaign in a very short time. I mean, people spend 2 years mounting campaigns, and figuring out how to run. To run for president in that quick period of time, coalesce Democrats around you, very hard to do because, Democrats at that time, as everybody probably remembers, were just very much struggling and thinking that, man, we're not going to win with the sitting president. And that was a very controversial way to do that. So all of that is happening in real time, and we're putting out a book in real time. And I think it's like the process of doing a photo book is so different than any other book. You really are in this group collaboration. My friend Michelle, who is a terrific reporter at Washington Post, will notice our profession is more like what we did with this book. It was like a project that had to be, you had a team. So the design, how is it going to be designed? How are we going to put it together? How are we going to have the modern kind of way of having a book? There was a lot that went into thinking about how to construct it. And then getting photos today is really hard. It's a lot harder to get permissions. A lot goes into it than even 16 years ago we were doing an Obama book. I mean, and Deb is, for those who don't know, writing, my co-author here, Deborah Willis, is like the author of some 20 books. She's one of the top visual historians in the country. She runs the department at the Tisch School at NYU, Department of Imaging and Photography, and she's a well-regarded, photo historian. So she has a lot of relationships. Call on your relationships, but you go through all of the services, Getty and the wire services, and you're looking for photos. You start just checking photos and bringing them in and seeing that looks like something we might want to use in this section, and you're just bringing them in. Going through like that, maybe like 2,000 photos. And you're also trying to find photos, the way reporters try to find gems, someone in their archive or someone who had a personal relationship with her or one of the AKAs. And so you're trying to get some of those, and you're seeing, and you're just, kind of ingesting at first. And then you got to, though, map the sections, we didn't go chronologically. We tried to go based on different themes, and you're trying to fit photos into these themes, and you have to get permissions, and you're on a clock. And Simon Schuster's not letting something get published if the permission is not nailed down. It can't be like, well, we'll get to it or we'll sign. It's got to be nailed down. And so a lot of times, and my job was also writing in introducing these sections. So a lot of times photos would fall out. We think we have the photos for family life, and then we find out we can't get a permission for this photo of her with her uncle in Harlem. So now, all right, we got to get something to replace it. And that was going on all the way till the end. So it's just that part of just the frenetic pace of it. And meanwhile, the campaign's going on. And a lot of people will ask the question, so are you still going through with the book if she doesn't win? It's like, well, that's not even a question. That's not a choice. You commit to a book before knowing the outcome of a race.
Yeah.
And you make a decision, and that's Simon & Schuster's decision, that there's value for the book regardless of the outcome. But of course we know the mood is going to be different if you have a book about the next president versus a book about someone who got close but didn't make it. And it turned out they wanted the book. For Simon & Schuster, it was a very quick turnaround. I think we closed on it like in maybe second week in October, and it came out a week before Christmas, December 17th. So to turn around a book in 2 months, publishing is unheard of in a major publishing house. Of course, we do journalism.
Yeah.
We do that like every week. We do things like that. But so it came out right in time for Christmas, and yeah, I mean, and we're in the country we're in, right? The president is the president, and he's got the co-president, which is the richest guy in the world, and it's an incredible time, And so the campaign that was run by the vice president that ended up not versus what became now, the juxtaposition is truly striking, and I think we haven't really seen in the early stages of presidency quite like this one, even though we went through a presidency in 2016 that was, certainly the breadcrumbs were there to know what this presidency would be, but it's much different than it even was in 2016 when he got elected.
Yes, and I think the title for the book is very striking. The historic insert, joyful and auspicious. I think her run for the presidency was, in my estimation, much more challenging than Obama's run in 2008. She had such a short period of time in which to build a platform to run for the presidency. And as you say, she was the vice president at the same time. So it was quite a remarkable journey that she made, and is to greatly be celebrated here in the month of celebrating women. I think this will go down as one of the greatest moments in American history.
Well, certainly, I mean, it's, National Women's History Month. And, she certainly has been an historic figure, really. I mean, in almost setting history in every part of her career. I mean, starting back when she first ran for an office and got elected DA in San Francisco, and no woman had been DA before, no, African American, South Asian, and that would be on repeat throughout her career. California Attorney General, U.S. Senate, from California, and then Vice President. Making history at every step, which I think is kind of underestimated, right? I mean, it's really hard to be somebody that is getting looked at not only just from the standpoint of what do you bring to the Attorney General's office as the top law officer in California, or what do you bring to vice presidency, but like, in addition, you also are the first of your kind to do that. And so the extra level of scrutiny, that's a lot. Anybody who's been a first and a pioneer in that way probably understands that that's very hard. And so here she is, get that close, I mean, not as close to the electoral college vote, but 1.5%. You know, the campaign mounted 3 months when Democrats looked like they were not even going to be competitive. Although Joe Biden says he would have won. But, you know, 1.5% to somebody who effectively was kind of the incumbent as a Republican nominee. But so it'll be interesting to see what she does next. And there's a lot of talk about whether she'll run for governor of California. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think there's another chapter to be written. She's not going anywhere.
Yeah, still young. So whatever she does next, probably have some more history associated with it.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that we're noticing now is that journalism seems to be under attack, great journalism. And how are you and other journalists in your field coping with this new era that we're working with, where the fake news and this and that and the other? How are you coping with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two things, right? I mean, one is just our industry is challenged economically, like, and that it's almost every part of it, right? I mean, you know, newspapers where I spent most of my time, you know, it's really not even the right noun, you know. When I went to LA Times, so I wish I could destroy the noun. It's not an apt noun for what a daily news organization is that was a newspaper, because the paper itself, the physical paper, it's not a good representation of what it is now. And so, you know, but the economics of it are built around having a newspaper that beautifully curated and by human beings and dropped on doorsteps and go out and pick it up and people advertise in it. And, you know, it was the key driver of a public's information. I think it was the leading driver, you know, beyond even, you know, network and local television. And like all of those businesses have been upended, and primarily because of advertising as a source of revenue is not really enough to sustain news organizations. That's happening in linear television, certainly in newspapers. It happened in magazines, you know, that were weekly magazines. It's just, and so everybody's struggling to find a different model. You have to be able to get people to subscribe. The subscriber model of revenue is, man, if I had polled my my friends out there, people say, well, how many subscriptions you have, you know, and how many, you know, if you have subscriptions to Netflix and, you know, Amazon Prime and 2, 3, 4, you have a whole lot of, and people can't constantly subscribe to everything. And so that's not enough. And then you're trying to get alternative sources of revenue, either, you know, license your work, you know, to, you know, if you're a news organization, you're producing stories everywhere, you license it to people who want to make movies out of it and television shows. That's a source of revenue. Events are a source of revenue, but it's just not enough revenue to stop, just to take my my part of the corner of the industry. You know, 2.5 newspapers a week dying. You know, and we had a big, robust newspaper culture. Every city, almost every major city had a great newspaper, or at least a very good one. Few cities, major American cities, didn't. But now there are not many. And you know, hey, even the Los Angeles Times, you know, largest news organization west of the Mississippi River that I ran for a while, you know, it struggled to get audience, you know, and very hard to make the transition from a newspaper to a purely digital product, which is what every news organization has to do. So my good news on that is that I do feel like there are more and more startups. I think the nonprofit model of news, and I'm involved in one in Los Angeles. I think that has a lot of promise. There's some tremendous local news organizations around the country, in Chicago and all kinds of places all around the country that are nonprofit, and they are being financed by foundations. Foundations are getting involved in journalism more, seeing that there's a relationship between having a really strong, great civic kind of broadly community in a place and journalism. There's a connection to holding people accountable and making sure that journalism survives. And so there's a lot of money both from individual donors and foundations that going into journalism now. So that's promising. And you know, and the new group of journalists coming in, they have other skills, and we're building a broader ecosystem and a broader number of people coming into a profession. Like everybody coming to the profession now, I'm gonna say you don't need to be in journalism or gone through and had a journalism degree. You can do other things, man. If you're great at video and you're great, you know, analytics, man, there's a place for you in our profession. And we need new thinking and new ideas and new ways to tell stories. So we got to welcome people to come in and lift up our profession. So I think it's challenging, but we have to, those of us in it have to keep trying to help make it for those coming up and encourage people to come into our profession. And the second part of that is we're not alone, right? Our institution is attacked. You know, journalism has been attacked as as an institution, and it's been attacked at the highest levels by the president of the United States, and that's and other places. And I think there is some relationship, I think, to our profession being, you know, down low in terms of trust and everything with how it's been attacked. You know, there is a relationship to that. And you're constantly being demonized and at the top levels of society, then that doesn't help us build trust. But we have to do our part to build trust in local communities too. We've got to continue to kind of work on that, and that's some of the responsibility we have to take. And the part about fighting the attacks, we have to battle against those, like the efforts by current administration and others to curb press freedom, which is kind of an historic, you know, right. You know, it's in the Constitution. We have to fight that, and I think people are willing to fight, and in the courts and wherever we need to fight. So that has to be done, and you know, we need journalists to be brave, as they always have been. You know, they've been. Man, journalists are some of the bravest people I know. They go everywhere. No story. So can't cover Ebola. You know, can't cover COVID. We cover every single thing. I mean, we go into places where there are wars and go into difficult environments. That's what journalists do, and most of them do it out of a sense of passion and obligation and feeling like this is, if we don't do it, who's going to do it, and do really the hard work. So, you know, and I think you have a lot of, I don't think people are cowering, you know. Michelle, you're not cowering, right? I mean, people, I think, still want to be in this profession and are willing to adjust to the times we're in, and that's what we have to do.
Well, that is seems to be a sign of the times, an attack upon information, the age of misinformation. Where do you get your news from? And I think we can certainly appreciate what you as a journalist have to go through, because as you say, everything has to be covered. And these days, it's a real challenge. So we certainly wish you all the best moving forward. What is your next project coming up?
Well, shoot, I got a few things I'm doing. I mean, I think I'm writing a series of essays on LeBron James for Washington Post opinion section. I think I still there've been changes places, but I think LeBron James still falls into the parameters of the opinion section of the Washington Post, and so I'm at the beginning of that for a year, and just trying to look at him in the context of greatness and sustained excellence in a very small competitive job market, which is the NBA. 450 jobs, and you
Hmm.
have become at the top of your field. What that is like, and certainly there's a lot of ways to debate LeBron James and a lot of things to say about it. I'm gonna try to just take themes that are beyond the sports realm and look at those themes, and that's everything from fatherhood and greatness itself. How do you sustain it? How do you achieve it? Um, where you're from, your roots, what a place means to you, how a place shapes you. Uh, you know, how does a city like LA come to you? What do you mean there versus what do you mean in Akron,
Mhm.
Ohio? Intellect, which I think is sometimes under thought about in the context of sports. We associate the greatest intellects in other fields because we think you're intellectual in science or history or that's something different. But man, sports, what it takes to perform at that level, the mental part of it, that dimension of learning is really something to dive into a little bit. So just try to write. So that's one thing, and that's fun for me. And then the documentary space is something that's really interested me. And Breakwater Studios is we have worked with them as a Merida, the Last Repair Shop. We got the Oscar short docs, but this company, they're kind of like experts in short docs. They're like 3 Oscar nominations in 4 years and 2 Oscars, and just work with them to think about ways to extend the business subject wise and otherwise, and just helping Ben. And that's fun for me. I'm interested in the documentary space, and also just as I mentioned, this local news initiative we have a consortium of 20 local news organizations in LA that we're trying to bring together as a collaborative, and under the American Journalism Project, and it's probably like the largest of its kind in the city. See if the 20, we can bring them together and with an umbrella newsroom, and see they'll do everything they're doing now, but seeing how we can partner and make journalism stronger in LA County through bringing them together. So I think that's enough for now.
Yeah, sounds like you have a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I thank you for the conversation that we've had here, and I think we should take a little applause from the audience. What do you think?
Oh, well, thank you.
For Kevin Merida.
Thank you,
Kevin
appreciate
Merida.
it.
And at this point, we are going to open the floor up to questions. Question in the back, yes.
Kevin, how you doing? Welcome back home.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, I remember your storied career went to Boston U and Berkeley, but you got your start at Pullen Junior High.
Hey,
And you wrote a story about us, a track team and what have you. How much impact did that have on your career?
Man, you're bringing me back, I'm trying to see who you are, because my eyesight is not.
Lloyd Blackwell.
Oh God, man. Lloyd Blackwell, man, that's.
In civics class.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Yeah, you know what? You're right, because and Carl Rome was like one of the first people that, yeah, he was a syndicated columnist, one of the people who looked up to. Him, and also Shirley Povich, was a sports columnist reading. But yeah, I remember some great, touch football games or Pullen, but yeah, I mean, I think, I'm gonna go before Pullen to Randolph Village Elementary, we were right there, because that was, and there was a teacher, Wilbur Wilson, who was the one that first was telling me about what journalism was, and I didn't even really know as a field, because you're like your 5th grade, you're not associating like a career with what I'm just reading newspaper. He's like, no, you reading that newspaper, and you're reading a sports comic, you like that. That's actually, you can become that. This is what you have to do to become it. It's the first planting seed of that. But no, man, like I'll say this about all of Prince George's County. I mean, when we were coming up at that time, and then busing happened, everything informs you. I never forget that. I have these flashbacks at different times in school and different moments, and you just remember just that time was just a young, curious person, and all the people that are trying to stoke your curiosity, and that can be the interactions with us in school as kids, but also the teachers. But yeah, that, yeah, pulling all of that.
It's a historic site, your house on Peppermill Village.
Yeah, man, yeah, you're going back. Appreciate it. Good. Thanks for coming by, Lord.
Thank you for your question.
Well, Cole brought me.
Oh, is it? Where's Cole at?
You know, man.
Okay, good.
Yes, can I ask you to step to the mic? The recording in the back. Thank you.
Hello.
Hey, Michelle.
So I was curious in the book when you were talking about, obviously this incredibly short period that you're putting it together. How did you think about the reality that you didn't know what was going to happen? I mean, obviously a lot of people felt she had momentum, but you cover politics. So when you were putting it together and thinking, okay, let's say this is like a historic thing about this period, were the interesting like discussions you guys had about how to deal with that?
Well, I think, you can always write around the ending, which that's just wordplay. And we talked about that toward the end. And I just said, I told Dawn, we don't have to, everybody knows it's coming out. We can just say what happened up to what we know and project. But I thought about it more of a photographic biography is what I called it, because I thought to get to the end, you're not even in a position to be the nominee unless you've done all this other stuff, and including getting vetted, which is a big part of other people say, this person might have been better, that person might have been better, but she's been very vetted because she ran for president and as vice president. So less is going to come out magically when people start digging into her. But I thought we needed to capture it, the whole arc of her life and story, and it was an opportunity to do that and weave in this 107 days in it. So mostly started thinking about it that, and then I think we just started capturing enough of the campaign. Maybe we could have, hindsight, maybe we could have had more campaign photos. I don't know. There wasn't as big a body of work, right? Because at the time we're putting it on, she's maybe like a month into it, and she only had a month, and we are ending in October, so we didn't even have that period between October and November. So, in my view, anyway, and I think it was shared by the editor, we can't build a whole book just around the campaign, and it also would serve to kind of accentuate the campaign. And then if you don't win, then there's less value for the book, in my opinion. Like, so it was just an opportunity. Like, let's take a look at her whole arc and let's hit some themes. We have some, things like selfies. Things I noticed and looking through a lot of photos. How she takes selfies. We put together a whole section of selfies. Put together a section of kids. And so we're thinking more like, how can we make this book last and be worthwhile beyond just the campaign, while taking advantage of the campaign, because that's the thing that's happening now.
Okay, Betty.
Okay. My question is, does she know about the book?
I believe she does. I mean, I don't know personally. I was told that she was told about it. We also, because her photographers, and Deb knows the people that worked on her, that are her White House photographers that worked on her official. We used some photos. We tried to get. I think we have a couple of them that are from the White House photography staff. They ended up having a book of their own, the White House photographers, who were shot, and so I'm sure we probably would have gotten more of those photos if they not been working their own. But yeah, I'm told she has, but I haven't had any direct contact with her.
Another question. I'm one of those fossils that still get to watch it and post delivered to my front door.
So does my mother.
Having said all that, I read the first opinion that you had written, and my question is that have I missed another one or have
Oh, LeBron James.
yeah.
No, I'm behind.
Okay.
So I haven't. I'm actually working on the second one right now. But yeah, my mother likes to, get her coffee. She reads the physical paper, and her critiques about the Washington Post are all based on what's in the physical paper. So, which is also one of because everything is not in the physical paper. So some things don't get published, but it's still a good product. Go
Right?
ahead.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm just curious, from doing this book, was there something you learned about Kamala, either in thinking about the words or looking at the images, that you didn't appreciate about her beforehand, didn't know, didn't understand, that came to sort of a new recognition about who she is and maybe even, why she didn't resonate to victory as a candidate?
Well, that's a great question. And unlike the Obama book we did, where I was writing it, it's almost like I could take what I had written at the Washington Post, kind of massage it and put it in. I hadn't been following her campaign. I mean, and I've been, I was an editor, so I mean, I was following her like an executive editor would follow her, but not in that granular way. I think they're probably little things in looking at photos, and the other thing I would say is that because it's a photo book, the way I approached it would be different. It's not a biography, so I'm not approaching it as a biographer. I'm not really trying to find out things about her. I'm not reporting. I'm really just trying to see. Looking at imagery, and I'm trying to see what can I conclude from the imagery. What can I say about it? And I said a few things in there. I mean, I think one of the things is that that she presents as a taller person. I think she has stature because she has stature in all of her roles, and she's been these first. I think just like the way part of it is how she dresses. I mean, and she's pantsuit queen. She's part of the group that has really modernized that fit. But she presents to me taller than 5'4", and that was an observation. Just the way in which she's photographed, she seems like she's taller and 5'4" small, and even when she's next to people, it's a weird thing, that part of it. And I've also just noticed, like I've covered politics many years and campaigns, but I often kind of watch how politicians try to connect with the individual people, and particularly in crowds. And I think the way that she does it she has perfected that, of making the eye contact and the points and really having that connection in a way. And I've just seen a lot of the photographs where that direct kind of look. I think a lot's been said about the laugh and smile and all, and some of it was mocked. I think some of the images I liked were ones where we were capturing her, where you see some of the fierceness, because I do think there is a ferocity to her that, you could see when she was a prosecutor and doing some of the hard issues in attorney general. But I think also you know, that prosecutorial, I'm not letting anybody off the hook, also presented itself during the hearings and up in the Senate and committees. And I think that was another observation of just when you see her face when she's about serious business, like, you know what, the day is not the day for you. You know, you're not getting off the hook here. And that face is different, you know. People say, oh, you're smiling. Just her face is much different when she's in that mode. And so those are more like photographic image observations about what I learned, because I hadn't really been watching her a lot. And I haven't been around her, you know, very much.
Yes.
You indicated that the manuscript had to be to Simon Schuster by October. Was there any attempt to tweak before the December publication?
No, I mean, once you get into the production process, it's, you know, the tweaking was old. You know, we had up until that whenever I don't even remember when the last days in October. Once you get into that production cycle, the writers and the authors have but so many. You know, you get passes, as they call them passes. They come back where you get a couple of cracks at looking at mistakes. After they've edited and copy edited, you can look and read, and you get a couple of cracks at it. But then at some point, it's like, no, we got to start printing, and that's it. So once you print, yeah.
Just a comment.
No, yeah, I mean,
No, I'm going to something else.
oh, okay.
Mr. Blackwell talked about Pullen. I don't know whether you know that it's a school for the performing arts now.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
Yes.
Wow, I'm glad to hear that.
It's students have to audition to participate in. Well, they still have the general program, but then they have an aspect of it that's a performing arts magnet.
Wow. Oh, that's fantastic. Glad to hear
Another
that.
question?
So knowing what we know now, how would you assess sort of like the bulk of the way that she was covered? Like, do you think that we could go back, or maybe there's people you think or outlets that you're like they really did a great job and they helped understand the moment, or do you think there's things we could have that we didn't understand?
Meaning specifically of the campaign or overall on her? Yeah. Yeah, I think it's and look, as somebody who was overseeing a newsroom that, you know, we did cover a lot, and we had at least initially someone signed to her full time. She's vice president. You know, I think it's hard, right? I when you're vice president, particularly, I think it's one of the hardest, you know, offices to cover. You know, because they're in the shadow of the presidency. What they're doing is not glamorous. I think some of it. I think sometimes we struggle to find the story, you know, and I think that's where journalism has to really like get into it. You know, we gotta get into the weeds of like, how do we get the story that is not there for us to get? They're not giving it to us, you know, and I think it's hard particularly when your vice president has so many, you know, vice president has so many like shields around you. You know, you can't get to people. You need cooperation. But there's a lot about her, the relationship, you know, Howard University, the relationship with the AKAs and the broader sisterhood, the idea of sexism. You know, I don't know that we cover that very well in this country. You know, there've been some big investigative things, but how that manifests itself on a regular base, like I think that the nuance of sexism, you know, and I think in her case, there's some of both, right? You know, racism, sexism, in coverage here or there, and also, so I don't know. I mean, and it's not all just private. You know, she man, she had a lot of office turnover. How was she as a boss? People had a lot of mixed feelings about that. Probably could have done a better job to dig into that. You see people the turnover. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure we could have probably done, we being the media overall, done more. I always think about, and I said this was either Obama. I said this when I was at the Washington Post. It's like when you have an historic figure, you can't treat that coverage like, regular coverage every day. You gotta like have at least that in the back of your mind. All right, I'm gonna put these figures through all the rigor that journalists rigor do, but just keep in mind this is for history. This is a historic figure. And 50, 100 years from now, people going to want to be digging into the first African American president, or first one to be vice president in an office, first woman, and first African American South Asian. Like that's, you have to wrestle with that at least, not just in symbolic terms, but just what is the coverage you need. And I just think like probably some of we missed out on some of that.
Final question? Yes.
Do you think that the Obama presidency, in a way, had a negative impact on Kamala? Because there were people in this country who had seen the first African American, and from what I've been able to discern, they weren't too anxious to see another person of color.
Yeah, I think that's a hard one, and thanks. Mr. Edwards, our former neighbor, right next door to us, growing up. I think it's a hard one to, and I've heard that said, but it's a little bit of the pioneers' burden, right? I mean, so Obama broke this incredible ceiling that didn't exist. People didn't think it happened in their lifetime, and a lot. I like to think when you break ceilings, you do stuff first. The outcome is generally good, right? For others and for people to see. They saw that, see an African American family in the White House, and Michelle's part and kids, and the way the events were different at the White House and everything. The presentation of the country is different. So I think, sure, I mean, there are always going to be people say, not again. But I think actually it makes it so that the possibility is easier. I mean, I said about with Obama. I mean, Jesse Jackson. I remember I go back that far of covering Jesse Jackson and there was a time when people wouldn't even run. Like that was a daring thing. And when Jesse ran twice and mounted like serious campaigns, it actually paved the way, changed the rules in the Democratic Party, made it so that Obama could actually be in a position to win and do it. So I think each time, I'm sure a lot of women, and me not being a woman, but when Hillary got that close and didn't win the popular vote, I think probably people saying, wow, man, we're right there. And I'm sure a lot of people thought, well, she could win. Kamala Harris could win even in this circumstance. And I think as the campaign was going on, she was, close enough for people to think could win. And I think, I don't know how that's going to impact other women as they run, and whoever is next up and tries. But I guess I think overall on balance, to your question, it's not a negative. It probably helps overall that Obama was able to, and not just win once, twice. And that was a very big thing. I remember at the time, the Obama team and everybody working said we got a re-election they thought was just as important as the election, because you had to show it wasn't a fluke and get a two-term president. So I think it paved the way for a lot of other possibilities.
Okay, with that, we'll bring this to closure. And before we get up and start moving around, I just want to do a little announcement on the books that we have, of course. Kamala Harris. They have been signed. If you want to have them personalized, I'm going to ask Kevin to move to this table in just a minute. He can personalize the books after you have purchased them. And you know, he's quite an author. I don't know how many of you have seen his Fierce 44. He's behind this publication. I'm going to ask you, you want to make some comments?
Well,
on this?
it was children's book we did. I was at the Undefeated. We did. I mean, it was when I was at ESPN and we were running the Undefeated. We did. We had literally two New York Times best-selling children's books, and that was one of them, based on something we had done. We basically had an exercise of who are the 44 African Americans who mean, you know, who shook up the world, we say. Who are the 44 African Americans who shook up the world? Now, obviously, there are many, many more, but we had a whole thing within our staff, and we came up with 44, and we produced this as a digital kind of project, and then we turned it, and then somebody out there saw it, and Houghton Mifflin said, "This is like a children's book," and so we did that. And,
it was 44.
Yeah, and that anyway, and anybody wants to get that for your kids is great, because everybody will debate who got left off the list and why we're 44. And we were in that debate every time I would go out. People were like, "What? You left out Rosa Parks? How could you?" You know.
Yes, there's many, many more. So a great book. And then, of course, how many of you already have this book? Oh, I don't have enough hands out there. We're making a very special deal for you today. You can get all 3 of them, but we only have 15 packages because the Fierce 44 has run out. So we have a package of 3. The great thing about them is that this is really a $90 to $100 package. This is the salesperson coming. It's a $90 to $100 package, but we're selling it at $75. And all of the books are signed. Can't get it any other place, okay? So if you're thinking of gifts or something that's very special, you have 3 of Kevin Merida's books, all with his signature. Now, I don't know if he's going to personalize them all for you, but at least you'll have all the signatures. We have only 15 of these, okay? They're already packaged and ready to go. All right? So at this point, Kevin, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
And we're going to get up and move around. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming.